My wife, who has been secretly married for 7 years, said she had to work overtime. What's even more outrageous is, at midnight, she actually posted a moment's update. Those who love me and those I love are by my side. The photo was of a cute, chubby panda dumpling. Our daughter, looking at the picture with expectation, asked me, "Is this the surprise mom is bringing back?" After thinking for a moment, I resolutely said, "No! It's time for me and Annan to leave." Because the next picture in the panda dumpling post was a photo of my wife with someone named Guang, looking intimate. After putting Annan to sleep, I opened that moment's post again, looking at the uncontrollable smile on the woman's face. At that moment, I finally realized how big the difference is between loving and not loving. However, just as I was about to get up and leave, Annan, who should have been asleep, tugged at the corner of my clothes. She looked at me with wide, expectant eyes. "When I wake up tomorrow, I'll definitely see you, right?" I nodded slightly, but I couldn't help but ask, "If Daddy wants to take you away from Mommy, would you be willing?" Annan's little lips, which had just been lifted in a smile, suddenly drooped. She looked at me cautiously. "Is it because Ann wasn't good that Mommy doesn't want me?" But I really wanted to tell Annan that the mommy she loved deeply didn't love her. However, looking at the innocent and pure expression in her eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say a word. But Annan is an angel. She pursed her lips. "Once this new year is over, if Mommy still doesn't like Annan, we will never want her again." I extended my pinky finger. On the first day of the new year, I confirmed a non-agreement with my child, who is not even 6. We hooked our pinky fingers, made a promise to never change for 100 years. Annan's little finger hooked mine. Her voice was soft, but her resolve was unwavering. I forced back the pain in my heart, smiling as I said, "Okay, Annan is the best." She finally closed her eyes in peace. Her little hand slowly released the corner of my clothes. I gently walked out of the room, closed the door. Leaning against the doorframe, I took a deep breath. Memories of the past years flooded my mind. My wife, Liu Ryan's attitude toward the child. Since birth, Liu Ryan had left the child for me to take care of. She didn't want to breastfeed, nor did she want to hold the crying child. Only when it came to naming our daughter did she, rarely, accompany me to the police station. Liu Ryan said the child should take her surname, so her name would be Liu Nianen. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I thought Liu Ryan simply wanted our daughter to be safe and sound for her whole life. But I had forgotten. Her self-given name was Ji Buin, 7 years of marriage. But in Liu Ryan's heart, there was only Ji Buin with whom she shared a heart. By the time she came back, it was already the morning of the first day of the new year. Annan, who was eating, saw her and her eyes lit up. She quickly swallowed the bun in her mouth. Annan quickly ran up to her. "Mommy, did you bring me a New Year gift?" Annan, with eyes full of expectation, looked at Liu Ryan's hands. "What did you call me?" Liu Ryan frowned. Her lips pressed into a straight line, showing her displeasure. Annan was frightened by the woman's cold demeanor and her eyes turned red. But she still restrained herself from crying. "Auntie, you promised me you'd bring me a New Year gift." However, Liu Ryan only furrowed her brow and even shot me a sharp glare. "This is the child you raised? She only knows to ask for things from adults." She glanced past Annan, nonchalantly saying, "I forgot the gift. I'll buy it in a few days." When Annan heard this, though disappointed, she still managed to force out a faint smile. But I noticed she had a beautifully wrapped gift box in her bag. Liu Ryan didn't stay at home for long. Before taking Annan and me to the old house, Liu Ryan's parents didn't like me, their son-in-law who came in through marriage, and they especially didn't like Annan. Because she was a girl, they couldn't pass on vast family fortune to her. As soon as we entered, a finely chiseled little boy naturally reached out to hold Liu Ryan's hand. Mom, why did you take so long to come? Dad and I have been waiting for you for so long. Liu Ryan lovingly pinched the boy's small face, took out a model from her bag, and said, "Here's the gift I promised to get you. I didn't forget." Anne looked at the toy with envy in her eyes. Anne whispered to me, "Why didn't Mommy buy me anything? Is it because I'm not good enough?" I gently patted Anne's head. Just as I was about to say something, Ji Boon walked up to me. It was as if he didn't even notice me. He smiled and wrapped his arm around Liu Ryan's waist. "How come you brought them along?" Liu Ryan chuckled softly. "After all, the child is mine. I just brought them to meet my parents." In her casual explanation, Anne tightened her grip on my hand. At the dinner table, the two elders kept praising Kiki for being polite and constantly served him more food. Kiki is Ji Boon's son, whom he brought back after divorcing and returning to the country. As for Anne, this biological daughter, they didn't even want to give her a small red envelope, simply because I was Liu Ryan's random, discarded husband, who she casually chose. 7 years ago, Ji Boon met his true love while studying abroad, and broke up with Liu Ryan, whom he had been dating for 3 years. At the same time, I was earning my tuition by working at a bar. When I was unexpectedly hassled by someone, it was Liu Ryan who helped me. That night, she asked me if I was willing to strike a business deal. She would pay for my tuition, with the only condition being that I would marry her in order to continue my studies. And with a vague sense of affection for her, I agreed. But after Liu Ryan got drunk one night, we unexpectedly became a real married couple. And later, she found out she was pregnant, but due to her physical condition, she couldn't carry the child to term. In the end, Liu Ryan had no choice but to give birth to the child. From the start, the elders had a neutral attitude toward me, and they treated me and Anne like heir. After dinner, I was just about to talk to Liu Ryan about divorce when I heard Anne crying and calling for me. I rushed to the living room and saw Anne's face covered in blood. She was holding her head, quietly sobbing. When she saw me, Anne fearfully ran into my arms. But the instigator, Kiki, saw me and didn't show any guilt at all. Instead, he wore a smug smile. When Liu Ryan appeared, he raised his voice and shouted, "Mom, she tried to bully me." Hearing this, Liu Ryan, her face full of anger, directly yanked Anna out of my arms. "You, child, instead of learning the good, why are you learning to act like this?" But when she saw the bloodstains on Anne's face, Liu Ryan froze mid-sentence. I had expected her to stand up for Anne, but I didn't expect that even with clear evidence right before her eyes, Liu Ryan still sided with Kiki. Kiki, holding the model, stood fearlessly next to Liu Ryan and loudly yelled, "Mom, she tried to steal my toy." I knew Anne would never do such a thing. But Liu Ryan only believed what Kiki said. She raised her hand, taking advantage of the moment when I wasn't paying attention. She actually slapped Anne's face hard. "Is it that you're lacking food or clothes at home? Is it so fun to steal other people's things?" I held Anne tightly in my arms, and for the first time, I yelled at Liu Ryan in anger. "She is your daughter. Can't you ask a few more questions? What if it wasn't Anne's fault?" Liu Ryan, however, sneered coldly and said disdainfully, "Are you questioning me? You, a son-in-law who depends on me to make a living. What right do you have to argue with me?" Yes. After marrying, I willingly became a house husband. I really don't have the right to argue with her in order to take care of our newborn daughter. So Liu Ryan could fully immerse herself in her work. I gave up almost all of my personal time. to do my best to take care of this small family. When Ji-boon saw this, he pretended to apologize. Children fight and quarrel. What child doesn't grow up crying? His words instantly ignited Liu Ryan's fury. At such a young age, already wanting to steal things. When she grows up, will she be killing and setting fires? I never should have had her in the first place. Even though I desperately tried to cover Ann's ears. In the end, she still heard every word. Ann jumped out of my arms and hurriedly said, "I'm sorry. It's all my fault." I looked at Ann in disbelief, but all I saw were the endless tears falling on the ground. Liu Ryan nodded in satisfaction. That's more like it. Admitting your mistakes and correcting them makes a good child. She raised her hand to pat Ann's head, but Ann dodged away. Auntie, Daddy and I will leave now. We won't disturb your family's reunion dinner. As I held Ann's hand and walked out of the Liu family home, no one tried to stop us. The winter wind in Jiangchang was exceptionally biting. I held Ann as we slowly walked toward the hospital. Halfway there, Ann wrapped her arms around my neck and asked in a sniffled voice, "Daddy, do you believe me? I really didn't steal his things. I just wanted him to tell me why Mommy likes him. I also want Mommy to kiss me and hug me. But now I don't like Mommy anymore." Every word Ann said felt like a sharp knife twisting in my chest. It hurt so much I could barely breathe. By the time we got to the hospital to dress her wounds, Ann remained strong, not shedding a single tear. But the nurse beside us looked on, heartbroken, and kindly handed Ann a lollipop. Ann looked at me with a face full of resentment. Why does this have to happen on the first day of the new year? Why didn't her mother come along? Ann, seeing my silence, simply answered for me. My mommy has a new family outside. She doesn't like me. She likes the children from Uncle's house. The nurse opened her mouth, but in the end awkwardly said to me, "I'm sorry," and her gaze toward Ann was filled with sympathy. It made my heart ache even more. Even strangers, whom we've never met, could sympathize with Ann's situation. But ironically, the one who gave her life, her mother, had never loved her. When we got home that evening, Liu Ryan was already sitting on the sofa. When she saw us, she awkwardly stood up, then took a cake out of the fridge. About today's events, I thought for a moment. In the end, it was Ann who got hurt. Liu Ryan squatted down and, for once, took Ann's hand. "Mommy apologizes to you. Can you forgive Mommy?" Ann looked at me, unsure what to do. This was the first time Liu Ryan had referred to herself as Mommy in front of her, and the first time she had taken the initiative to buy a cake for Ann. I couldn't bear to ruin this warm moment, so I took the initiative to hold Ann's other hand. But when the cake was finally cut, the look of expectation on Ann's face visibly turned into disappointment. Liu Ryan didn't understand. "Do you know, Ann?" Ann shook her head at me. "Daddy, I can eat it." Suddenly, the phone on the coffee table vibrated. It was from Ji-boon. I instinctively glanced at it. The contact name was beloved Ann, and the profile picture belonged to someone I had just met earlier that day. Liu Ryan looked at the message, but even when Ann softly said she couldn't eat anymore, Liu Ryan still did as she pleased. After she finished feeding the entire piece of cake to Ann, she finally sighed in relief. "I have something to do. I'm leaving now." As Liu Ryan stood up, Ann grabbed her hand. At this moment, her face had already swollen up from an allergic reaction, with hives of varying sizes. But Ann only quietly said, "Mommy, actually, I'm allergic to mangoes. Can you take me to the hospital?" Liu Ryan frowned. "Oh, you're allergic to mangoes. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" She looked at me disapprovingly. Is this some kind of trick you taught her? Ji Buin was right. You take her to the hospital yourself. I've got things to do. Liu Ryan impatiently brushed Ann's hand away, the car keys, and walked out. With the sound of the door closing, the house fell into a suffocating silence. Liu Ryan didn't remember that Ann was allergic to mangoes. She didn't see the pain on Ann's face and seemed unaware of the damage she had caused. To her daughter, Ann sat on the sofa, her little hand pressed against her swollen cheek. In her eyes, there was a maturity and resignation beyond her years. She didn't cry, nor did she try to stop Liu Ryan from leaving. She calmly looked at me and said, "Daddy, I don't want this bad mommy anymore." I nodded, smiling, but tears uncontrollably burst out. Actually, in the beginning, Liu Ryan and I had moments filled with warmth. She was like a savior suddenly entering my life. But after weaving a beautiful dream for me, she bloodily told me the truth. Someone like me, an orphan without parents, doesn't deserve someone like her, a shining moon in the sky. Once again, we returned to the familiar hospital, and it was still the same nurse. But this time, she didn't ask any questions. Instead, she silently placed many candies on Ann's bedside. During the time Ann was hospitalized because of the allergy, Liu Ryan didn't come to visit even once. But Ji Buin's moments often featured her image. Some people, even if you miss them, when you turn around, they've always been waiting for you. With just a message, they'll immediately appear in front of you. Some people are truly suited to be mothers. Especially Kiki's mother. I opened the picture. It was Liu Ryan gently wiping cake crumbs off Kiki's mouth. And the whole mango cake in the picture was hundreds of times more exquisite than the small mango cake she brought home for Ann. It turned out that even the one and only cake was just another gift Liu Ryan gave to another child on the side. When Ann was discharged from the hospital, Liu Ryan surprisingly gave me a call. "When are you coming back?" I thought she had finally had a change of heart, but the next sentence extinguished all hope. "The house is a mess right now. You better come back and clean it up." I chuckled softly. With the wealth of the Liu Group, can't you afford a nanny? Liu Ryan froze. She hadn't expected that I, who had always been obedient to her, would contradict her. "I don't like outsiders. Besides, you're the only one who's familiar with this house." I didn't say anything more. After finishing Ann's hospitalization procedures, I carried her back home. The house was indeed in a mess. It seemed like there had been a party. I told Ann to wait by the door, then went into the bedroom to start packing. This house was almost surrounded by all our things. But even though we had lived here for nearly 7 years, I still had to clear space for the real man of the house. Before leaving, I placed the prenuptial agreement in the most visible spot by the entrance. Then I took Ann in my arms, and without looking back, left the home that no longer felt like a home. Before boarding the plane, I sent Liu Ryan one last message, wishing you happiness. I didn't wait for a reply. I took out the SIM card and switched off the phone. It was time for Ann and me to look forward. It wasn't until the Lantern Festival that Liu Ryan remembered that Ann and I were still at home. But even then, she still procrastinated and didn't return home until 10 p.m. When she saw the still disheveled room, her expression immediately darkened. Liu Ryan angrily flipped to our chat page, and just as she was about to send me a message demanding answers, she finally saw the message I had sent a week ago. But as soon as she sent hers, she saw only a red exclamation mark on the other side. Liu Ryan took a deep breath and began dialing my number. But unfortunately, I had already changed my number. On the other end of the line was always the busy mechanical female voice. Seeing that the call couldn't get through, she angrily slammed the door. When she walked into the bedroom, she finally realized that all the things related to me and Anna had long since disappeared. At this moment, Liu Ryan finally sensed something was wrong. She hurriedly ran to the living room and finally saw the divorce agreement I had left behind. It was a marriage of convenience from the start, so I didn't ask for anything. The only condition for my clean break was that Ann's custody must be given to me. Liu Ryan's gaze lingered on the place where I signed, before she angrily tore it to pieces. At that moment, the phone rang. Liu Ryan quickly answered it. "He Kong, what are you doing running around with Ann during the holidays?" Before she could finish her angry question, Ji Boon's voice on the other end calmed her down. "Maybe father and daughter went on a trip. It's Lantern Festival today. Kiki said he wants to eat the tangyuan you made." Liu Ryan nodded and agreed. But the door wasn't closed, and she happened to hear Kiki's triumphant laugh. "Auntie Liu is such a fool. I just said a few words." And she really gave up her daughter. She froze in her motion of about to open the door. Ji Boon disapproved, gently tapping Kiki's head. "Don't say that about Yin Yan." The moment the emotion on Liu Ryan's face hadn't even passed, she heard Ji Boon continue. "After all, she will be your mother from now on, and the Liu group will belong to the two of us, father and son. You must act extra well these days, so she like you even more." Kiki nodded. "I understand, but I think she's so stupid. She believes everything I say." The father and son schemed and laughed without restraint. Liu Ryan suddenly burst through the door. The smugness on Ji Boon's face instantly vanished. He nervously asked, "Did you hear anything just now?" Liu Ryan angrily threw the food she had just bought at Ji Boon. "I heard everything. I'm telling you, I will never divorce in this lifetime, and I will never marry you again. I won't just hand over the Liu family to you after I left Jiangchang." I had no knowledge of the dispute and rift between Liu Ryan and Ji Boon. At that time, I was busy setting up a new home with Ann. Ann had told me long ago that she wanted to raise a small dog, but Liu Ryan didn't like animals that shed fur. And she also disliked noisy pets. Now that I had finally escaped the oppression of the past, I naturally wanted to give everything I could to the well-behaved Ann. Once everything was arranged, it was also time for Ann to start school. I had just dropped her off at kindergarten when the phone rang. It was a servant from the Liu family on the other end. Previously, her youngest daughter had been bullied at school, and it was I who asked a former college classmate to help handle the situation. Because of this, she was the only one in the entire Liu family who ever showed any kindness to me. "Mr. Liu, on the first day of the new year, I didn't dare to speak up for you, but I recorded the video of that little boy bullying Kiki. I've hesitated for so many days, but I still want to send it out, hoping it can help you. It turns out there are still many good people in the world." I felt a warmth in my heart, but I still declined. I believe my daughter would never bully anyone. The so-called evidence isn't that important to me. But I didn't expect that Wang Ma still held a grudge for not standing up immediately, and eventually gave the video to Liu Ryan. In the video, Ann obediently called out, "Kiki, brother." But the little boy ignored her completely. He even let out a disdainful grunt. Ann didn't get angry. She timidly asked, "Kiki, brother, can you tell me why mommy likes you?" Kiki stood up and suddenly shoved Ann to the ground. Without any reason, he began to bite Ann. When Ann couldn't bear the pain and cried out, only then did he answer the question slowly. "Because the person your mommy loves is my daddy. You and your poor daddy aren't liked by Liu mommy." When Liu Ryan saw this, she angrily threw the phone on the ground. After a long while, she finally composed herself and asked, "Are you very familiar with He Kong?" Wang Ma nodded. "Mr. He once helped me." Liu Ryan seemed thoughtful. She then handed a piece of paper to Wang Ma. Here are 100,000 yuan. I need to know He Qiang's exact location within a week. After coming to Sioux City, I found a job at a law firm again. Although I'm just an intern lawyer. For someone who hasn't been involved with law for 7 years, it's already enough. Since leaving Zhang City, leaving that suffocating home, everything has been developing in a better direction. Anne made new friends in kindergarten, and I rediscovered my former passion. But along with happiness came an unexpected turn. I didn't expect Liu Ryan to spend so much energy looking for me and Anne. When we met again, she was outside the kindergarten trying to take Anne away. The teacher was very responsible, and she noticed Anne's fear, protecting her behind her. It's been more than half a month, and I haven't seen you come to pick up the child. Besides, Anne has already said that she doesn't know you unless the child's father comes. Liu Ryan quickly took out her phone and flipped through it. She desperately tried to prove she was Anne's mother, but she searched through her phone for a long time. But she discovered that after 7 years, she had never taken a single photo with us. The teacher, sharp-eyed, waved when she saw me. After handing Anne over to me, she finally let out a sigh of relief. Seeing that Liu Ryan still wouldn't leave, she openly complained to me. This lady just had to take Anne away. No matter how I tried to persuade her, it didn't work. She kept insisting she's Anne's mother. When you signed up, I paid special attention. Wasn't Anne's mother already deceased? When Liu Ryan heard this, her face turned red then pale with anger. When did I die? He Kong. No matter how much you hate me, you can't deny my existence. Liu Ryan is alive, but it might have been better if she were dead. At least Anne could tell her classmates that her mother chose to stay in this world because she loved her so much. Weren't you supposed to be with Ji Buin? Why come looking for us? When did I ever say I wanted to be with him? Liu Ryan took a deep breath. I came to find you. Let's go home. But there was no apology. Oh, gift. I couldn't help but laugh out of frustration. It seemed like Liu Ryan was still living in the past. She thought I was that obedient He Kong, that with just one word from her, I would forgive her without holding grudges, and try to please her. But this time, she was too confident. I'm not going back. That's your home. Oh, mine and Anne's. Liu Ryan looked at me in disbelief. How is it not your home? I haven't even signed the divorce agreement. I held Anne, stepping back a step to avoid any suspicion. Then let the separation last for 2 years and automatically end in divorce. Liu Ryan couldn't understand my persistence. She shifted the topic back to Anne. What about our daughter? What if someone mocks her for being a motherless child? I was about to speak Hui. Anne could no longer hold it in. I don't want you as my bad mother. You only like Che. You don't like me at all. Seeing Anne become emotionally agitated again because of Liu Ryan's presence, I gently patted her shoulder with a pained heart. I'm not going back. Anne doesn't welcome you either. Please don't come and disturb us anymore. Upon hearing this, Liu Ryan's face immediately turned ugly. She bit her lip, guiltily saying, I know I've ignored you and Anne these years, but I haven't done anything outrageous. Can't you give me one more chance? Afraid of my refusal, Liu Ryan quickly promised. In the future, I'll focus more on family than work. I'll accompany you to pick up and drop off Anne. Will this work? I shook my head. No need. I can handle all of this on my own. I can do all of this myself. I held in Anne, paying any attention to Liu Ryan behind me. I originally thought that, based on Liu Ryan's proud nature, She would leave after I spoke so harshly. I thought she would never come looking for me and Annan again, but I realized I had underestimated her determination. The next morning, she was waiting for me downstairs in the community. When she saw Annan, she quickly handed over the strawberry cake. Last time, I didn't know you were allergic to mangoes, but this time I remembered. Annan took the cake, but then to Liu Ryan's surprise, she handed the cake to a girl who was out for her morning jog. Then she held my hand. Dad, take me to school. Liu Ryan's eyes were full of confusion, but she didn't say anything. After dropping Annan off at kindergarten, she caught up with me. Let's talk. Talk about what? I don't think there's anything for us to discuss. I looked at her calmly. How is there nothing? We are legally married. Annan is my daughter, both legally and by blood. I don't want us to remain at odds forever, and I don't want to fight with you over Annan's custody in court. When she mentioned custody, Liu Ryan smiled confidently. Whether it's about job stability or family conditions. I clenched my fist, but I didn't mention that I had already found a job. Fine, let's talk. As soon as we sat down, she handed me her phone. I already know about Checha lying. I've completely cut ties with Ji Buin and his son. I looked at the video of Annan being bullied and silently clenched my fists. So what? Your final solution is just to stay away from them and not make them pay the price? Liu Ryan shifted her gaze. Buin, after all, he grew up with me. I don't want to cause trouble for them. Even if she wanted to make amends with me and Annan, Liu Ryan still instinctively favored that father and son. Then there's really nothing left for us to talk about. I used to not want to argue, but now I can't even be bothered to. I stood up, unwilling to talk to Liu Ryan any longer, and headed toward the law firm. As soon as I arrived, Zi Ningbing, who's also an intern lawyer like me, handed me a steaming hot breakfast. Brother Kong, you definitely didn't have breakfast, right? She looked at me with a cheerful smile, her whole expression full of youthful energy. Thanks. I took a sip of soy milk and finally started to warm up. Zi Ningbing and I graduated from the same university, but she's about 5 or 6 years younger than me. No need to thank me. If it weren't for you stepping up last time, all the important documents in my bag would have been stolen. Zi Ningbing was referring to a recent divorce case because her bag contained key evidence against the defendant. In order to make the plaintiff lose, the defendant's side sent someone to snatch and destroy it. Coincidentally, I was just getting off work and saw her getting robbed. On impulse, I rushed in barehanded to do the right thing. Luckily, we won the case in the end. Since then, Zi Ningbing has taken special care of me. I chuckled lightly. We're colleagues. Helping each other is how it should be. But this scene, seen by Liu Ryan just as she entered the office, made her mistakenly think Zi Ningbing was my new girlfriend. She stormed in on her high heels and knocked the soy milk out of my hand. Such cheap stuff. You can actually drink it? Seeing her barging in so aggressively, I instinctively shielded Zi Ningbing behind me. That action only further ignited Liu Ryan's rage. She stared at me grimly. Is she the reason you want a divorce from me? I knew it. You gave up a life of luxury just to fight with me. Liu Ryan looked at me with a scornful expression, a mocking smile playing at her lips. For the first time, I felt like I didn't know the woman in front of me. I took a deep breath and said word by word, Liu Ryan, everyone is like you. Eating from one bowl while staring at another. Don't project your ways onto me. She was so angry at my words that her face flushed red. But unfamiliar with her surroundings, there wasn't a single person willing to speak on her behalf. Tears began welling up in Liu Ryan's eyes. Kong, you've changed. You used to never raise your voice at me. You promised me You treat me well for a lifetime. Realizing she couldn't out-argue me, Liu Ryan started digging up the past. But what I owed her, I already paid back long ago. Have you forgotten? This marriage was a transaction from the very beginning. And now, I don't want to play house with you anymore. So please, stop disturbing my life. Liu Ryan bit her lip, her dark eyes fixed on me. A long time passed before she looked at me with a dazed expression. So you don't want me anymore? Is that it? I shook my head, just as a glimmer of hope rose in her eyes. I denied it again. You were the one who abandoned Annan and me first. As soon as I finished speaking, Liu Ryan's tears started falling uncontrollably. But I apologized. I admitted I was wrong. Can't you forgive me? She choked back tears as she tried to explain. Nothing ever happened between me and Ji Boon. None of that matters anymore. I gave her a calm, peaceful smile. I just hope the next time we meet, it will be at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Since that day, Liu Ryan completely disappeared from NNS and my life. Until one day, she asked me if I wanted to come back. Hearing someone on the other end call me master, I couldn't help but laugh. Liu Ryan really hadn't given up. She actually used Wang Ma's phone too. Sent me all this nonsense. I knew she wanted to lure me back through remarriage. But just like I told her before, I don't love her anymore. Even if she got married 100 times, I still wouldn't go back to her. I couldn't be bothered to play these childish games with Liu Ryan anymore. So I simply blocked Wang Ma too. The only reason she was able to find me so quickly was most likely because of Wang Ma, whom I had contacted. I really couldn't think of anyone else. News of the CEO of the Liu Group preparing for marriage spread quickly and became widely known. Even in the small county town where I lived, people were talking about it. When I went to pick up Annan again, her teacher curiously asked me while holding her phone, "The woman who picked up Annan last time, is she really Annan's biological mother?" I nodded, and the teacher's face lit up with gossip. I smiled helplessly. Yes, but we're already divorced. I hope in the future the teacher won't bring up such irrelevant things in front of Annan. Upon hearing this, the teacher smiled awkwardly and quickly nodded. But Annan found out about it much earlier than I expected, and her calmness surprised me too. She didn't seem to care at all about Liu Ryan remarrying. She held my hand and said in her soft little voice, "As long as I have daddy, that's enough." I rubbed her head and silently vowed to work even harder to spoil her into a carefree little princess. Life at the law firm was fulfilling, especially after the new year when cases kept coming in. Even I, a newly hired lawyer, was assigned quite a few cases. When I saw news about Liu Ryan again, it happened to be on the day of her marriage. The Grand Century wedding was broadcast live globally, compared to the casual marriage certificate we got without a banquet. A reporter asked her, "Why did you choose to get married this year at the age of 30? Wearing a wedding dress, she clarified, "Actually, I got married at the age of 23. Was it with Mr. Ji Boon? So this time, you're having a proper wedding with him?" Liu Ryan shook her head. "Ji Boon won't be at the wedding. I just wanted to use this wedding to apologize to someone." Liu Ryan looked into the camera, and I wasn't sure if it was my imagination. But after scanning the surroundings, Liu Ryan smiled bitterly and said, "Actually, I once had a husband who loved me very much, and a very obedient daughter. But because of my carelessness, I lost them both. This wedding is to make up for my husband. I hope he can watch this live broadcast." Suddenly, the church doors were pushed open, and Ji Boon walked in wearing a suit, holding Cheki's hand. He seemed unaware that this was a live broadcast. He walked down the red carpet and stood face to face with Liu Ryan. Good thing I came. The reporters thought he was the male lead Liu Ryan had mentioned. When they saw Che, they couldn't help but ask, "Didn't you just say you had a lovely daughter? Why is the child you brought today a boy? Could it be, Mr. Liu, that you have a pair of lovely twin children?" Liu Ryan frowned. "They're not the people I'm waiting for." She waved her hand, and the well-trained security guards prepared to remove the two uninvited guests. But Ji-boon had already noticed the reporter's presence. A man who cared deeply about his image. He didn't want to be the laughingstock of the world. He loudly proclaimed that he was the one Liu Ryan loved. The spectacle quickly became trending on social media, especially Liu Ryan's words, which made many people search for the identities of her husband and daughter to find out who they were. Many people also mocked Ji-boon for being a coward, until he posted a slightly awkward photo with Liu Ryan. Netizens began to feel sorry for him, the ex who had been overshadowed by a newcomer. They began to criticize me for ruining other people's relationship. Just when I was about to seek media help to clear things up, Liu Ryan posted a clarification on her company account. She clearly laid out the timeline of events, stating that our marriage happened in the 3rd month after she officially broke up with Ji-boon. I was never the so-called third party. With strong evidence from the involved party, the focus shifted back to Ji-boon, along with his already near-bankrupt G Group, which suffered a wave of online criticism. Within 6 months, Ji-boon and Che were both kicked out of their mansion. The father and son, once so glamorous upon returning to the country, they had completely become the proverbial stray dogs. They ran to Liu Ryan, hoping to borrow some money to get through their tough times. Liu Ryan refused. She took out that video and said, "It's time we settle the score between us." Kiki, feeling guilty, hid behind Ji-boon. When Liu Ryan said that a slap from an older child could be worth 10,000 yuan, Ji-boon didn't hesitate for even a moment. Kiki cried, begging his father to stop. "The reason I initially wanted Kiki's custody was because I thought the Liu family couldn't produce a son. But who would have thought things would escalate so quickly? And Liu Ryan wouldn't fall for it at all." By the time Kiki was left with a bruised and swollen face, Liu Ryan finally shouted for it to stop. Ji-boon looked at her expectantly. "I just counted. There were 500 slaps. Give me 5 million. Liu Ryan smiled lightly. "I only said a slap could be worth 10,000. But now I've thought it through. People like you are worthless." Finally, father and son got nothing, and were thrown out by Liu Ryan. As she spoke, Liu Ryan nervously looked at me. "Kiki has already been punished. Now, can you still forgive me? I'll try my best to be a good mother, a good wife." I couldn't forgive Liu Ryan, but I didn't know what Annan really thought. So I left the choice Annan's hands. Half an hour later, Liu Ryan walked out of Annan's room with red, teary eyes. She forced a smile that looked even worse than crying. "You were right. Now that we meet again, we indeed need to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau." When I finally held the divorce certificate in my hands, the weight that had been hanging over my heart for almost a year finally lifted. Liu Ryan didn't say anything. She only gave me a card when she was leaving. "I know you won't take it, but this is a gift for Annan." I deposited the money from the card into the bank, planning to give it to Annan when she turned of age. When I next heard news of Liu Ryan, I never expected it to be the last time. Ji-boon blamed all of his misfortune on Liu Ryan, especially after Kiki started becoming depressed. After being slapped by him, he became afraid of sunlight and was diagnosed with a mental disorder. Ji-boon wanted to get treatment for his son, but he had no money to do so. He simply gave up. In a fit of rage, he drove straight into Liu Ryan. Liu Ryan was lucky not to die, but the car accident left her paralyzed on one side of her body, and she would never stand again. Meanwhile, Ji Boon was arrested for attempted murder and locked away in a dark room. Kiki, with no one to care for him, was sent to an orphanage. I turned off my phone screen and carried the last dish out from the kitchen. The sound of firecrackers echoed outside. It was another New Year. In my home, there was me, an and a little dog.